Welcome into another episode of They've Got Now. I am really excited to be joined today by a Maryland Terrapin legend, uh, one of DC's most fitted out people, and somebody who's absolutely tearing it up over in Poland and Euro Cup right now, and that's Shatori Walker-Kimbrough. Shatori, first and foremost, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm honored for sure.
No, I appreciate it. I'm psyched to dive into this number one because I love your game, love watching you play.
Yeah,
But I think you just have like a really unique story and kind of just path through basketball.
thank
So a
you.
lot of fun things to dive into. But first thing I have to ask you, especially like I know you're back on break right now, but
Yeah.
what has start of things in Poland been like for you, especially first couple games of Euro Cup?
Yeah, it's been good. I actually played for that team back in 2020. Well, I guess it was more so 2021 because I didn't it was during COVID. So I didn't go the first 3 months, so from like October to December, but I got there around like the end of December, early January. And it's so cool for like to come like full circle because they have like a new arena.
Hmm.
And during that time also like the whole city was like shut down because of COVID. Like people were still just trying to figure it out. So I didn't really get to explore the city. So now coming back, I have like a new appreciation for it because like the arena's huge now, and like all the fans, like we didn't have any fans at all, and they have a really good supportive fan base there that I'm getting to meet. And I mean, our team is playing pretty well. We dropped one, but I mean, we're coming together, and I'm new to the team now, so once chemistry starts rolling, everything will start rolling.
No, absolutely. I know it. Yes, it was a loss, but I think what you had 30 in that one. It was against
Yeah.
Asvel. I gotta ask you, what did you think playing against them? Because I don't know if you've seen much of Dominique Malonga, but she's been kind of like
Yes.
nuts to watch.
No, for sure. And like they're like a historic team because of like their
For
owner
sure.
Tony Parker. And I mean she's already really good. And then when I found out she's only 18, I was like, oh wow,
It's crazy, right? Like you
like
watch
there's
her
no
play.
ceiling. There's no ceiling.
Yeah.
Like and then like the game, I think he's either a game after us or 2 games after us. She dunked it in transition. I was like, oh wow, okay. So she's
Yeah.
like getting better game to game, like not even year to year, like game to game, she's just like coming into her own.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to watch. There was a play in Olympic qualifiers. So I do like a lot of my stuff. I do like just kind of overseas scouting and keeping up with everything draft related. And like she had a play, I think it was like something against Finland, and it was so they
Uh-huh.
were like blowing him out. But like she like back tapped the rim before
Uh,
hit it before a layup, and I was like, nobody can do that. It's
No,
like,
literally she's making it look so easy. Like she's making
yeah,
it look so easy there. Yeah, no, she's definitely on my like I have to watch way more of her. Way more of her.
absolutely. But yeah, I mean, diving in more to you, obviously, I mean, you're back home in PA right now.
Mhm.
And looking at your come up, it's funny because I do a lot of work with Maryland. I know Brenda a
Nice.
bit. So I was talking to Rose DePaul the other day, and she has a
Girl.
lot. She has a lot of stories about you, all good, of course. But um, I wanted to start off with, how did you end up at Maryland? Obviously, coming out of Hopewell and Aliquippa, but like, how did you end up at Maryland? I know it was between them and Duquesne, but
Yeah,
I heard that there was a little bit of, there had to be some convincing that you could be a player at that level. So
for
what was
sure.
that like for you?
Yeah, it started back when like you know AAU.
Mhm.
And I had taken I think a summer or two off of AAU. My mom wasn't really big into like I don't want to say basketball, but she just like let me do like she let me be a kid.
Yeah.
So when people were like being very serious about AAU, I wasn't. And so when I started, I think it was going into my junior year. One of my teammates was getting recruited by Maryland, and she got invited to like the elite camp down in Maryland,
Mhm.
and she didn't want to go by herself. Now Maryland was not looking at me. They were looking at my teammate, and she's like, "Tori, can you come down to Maryland to the camp with me?" And now it's in the summertime, and I'm like, I'm trying to be outside with my friend. I'm not trying to go to the camp until the tournament starts. But my mom was like, Tori, I think it'll be a good opportunity. You kind of measure your skills up against other people because I've only really played in Western PA up until that point. And so I go down to elite camp with her. And they separate us two because they have like their recruits that they brought in. And then there's other kids that they pay to come to the camp, but they aren't like on the recruiting list. And I end up playing really well. And that is how I got onto Brenda's radar by like my friend invited me down, or my teammate at the time, but we were both. And then I'm pretty sure if it wasn't, I think it was like later on that summer, I ended up getting a scholarship because she ended up coming to more games. But that's kind of how Maryland got on or I got on Maryland's radar. Because like Duke, like being from Western PA, like I had the Pitts and the Duquesnes, like the smaller schools, like the smaller D1 schools, but I didn't have like Maryland was my biggest offer. And then going down and being around DC and being around Maryland, I loved it. I loved it the second I got down there. Just the diversity. I loved the team. I loved her coaching staff. Like everything about it, I loved. It felt like a family, a home away from home, and that's kind of like what I wanted. I didn't want to be too close to home, but close enough if my parents and family can come and watch me play. And that is Maryland fit all of the criteria.
Yeah, no, I love hearing that, and obviously a lot that we can dive into with that we will in a sec. But I want to start too with like, it seems like family is really important to you. Like I know you especially just giving back to community in general. You had a bus full of kids coming to watch you
Yeah.
play out with the Mystics this season.
Yeah.
What has it been like, kind of being able to do that? Because I'm a
Yeah.
little bit younger than you, but I think starting to get into like the reign of like, okay, I can do that. I can have opportunities
Sure.
to like, show people who are younger than me like there are like so there are cool things that are ahead of you. So what has that
For
been like for you, and why
sure.
is that so important to you?
Yeah. It's been like kind of I guess instilled in me just growing up. I think back in my freshman year of high school, actually might have been younger than that. I think it started in high school, but it was started on like Christmas. Now for me, Christmas is big because I love basketball and like all the games
Yeah.
come on during
Oh
Christmas. So
god.
I don't
Yeah.
want to be bothered.
Don't even get me started. Yeah. Thanksgiving too coming up. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, for sure. And so my mom was like, we have this. I signed us up for this like charity event to feed the homeless on Christmas, and I'm just like we don't have any other day that we could do this. I'm like I want to give back, but it's Christmas. And I remember going. I think we had like a slot from like 12 to 2, and it was just I remember like the feeling of like it felt like I felt better giving back than even like receiving all the gifts I got, even at that young age. And I was like, wow, like this is really fulfilling. And it just made me just appreciative of like obviously the things that I have, and just like also like these are people in my community that I didn't even know like didn't have a meal on Christmas Day. Like I don't know why, but like at that age, I just assumed everybody had at least on Christmas they had a hot meal, and so it was just really, really eye opening. And so I would, ever since then, we would go every single year to feed the less fortunate. And so I was just like, I was like I said, that was instilled in me at a young age, and I just wanted to, like, in different ways, be able to do what I can, and just like reach back out, because even like where I'm from in Aliquippa, we're like a big time football town. And so sometimes like young girls get like kind of like lost in the sauce because like it's just always about the guys in the football program. Now the football program is exceptional, but there's still like I feel like reaching back is important so that the girls know like they too can do things, and there's other opportunities and things like that. But I like want to be seen, and to show them not like just kind of like just giving money or writing a check, but also like reaching back and showing them there's a way.
Yeah, no, I really respect and appreciate that because I think similarly, like, I mean, as a kid coming up, I think exactly like you said, you don't really know that
Right.
about
Exactly.
homelessness and things like that unless you grow up around it or see that. And so yeah, it's humbling and like very difficult to kind of handle that, but also I think it's important to get that because
Sure.
it gives you a really important perspective in life and just everything in
Definitely.
general. Um, I love what you said too about just being visible because I think, so often people
Mhm.
chalk things up to like, oh, well, you need to spend money to give back. But I think I was out at Notre Dame the other day doing something. It's not always just, it's not everything's not about getting to the pro level, right? But
Mhm.
I was out for practice and Skylar was there, like just showed up. It was her first time back at in South Bend since Niel became head coach there. And like you can see the
Yeah.
impact that that has on players. Like
Ah, okay.
you watch her pick up somebody full court, like a practice kid full court and force a turnover, and like the players are like, that's the intensity that I need to play with. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. And like, having that, being able to show people like, this is what you do. This is
Mhm.
where I came from. I was in this spot too, and this is where I'm at. And having that visibility is so big. I think that's part of
Absolutely.
why I feel like why I love being around Maryland too, because I think Brenda does such
Yeah,
a great job with,
for
we
sure.
have, this is there, you can get to this. Um, so like getting onto campus at College Park and kind of like
Um,
not knowing necessarily what your career was going to look like. How did
sure.
you kind of acclimate? What were the first moments like for you getting to be a Terp and kind of feel like that what that was going to be?
Yeah, I didn't I don't want to say I didn't have confidence. I'm not gonna lie, I was second guessing myself a little bit going into Maryland. Especially like going in, like I played with Bree Jones,
Hmm.
Lexi Brown, Alexis Harrison. So I feel like at the time, like their names, and still today, like their names were huge. So I feel like I was like, I don't want to say like the low on the totem pole, but I was just like, I came in with a little chip on my shoulders. I was like, I got something to prove. And so I mean, honestly, from the day, like if my mom dropped me off on like a Thursday, like I'm trying to get in the gym like 5 a.m. Friday morning because I just know that I'm like I gotta get in, like I gotta get it rolling. Um, and I was really close with the coaching staff. The guy, one of the guys that I was actually really close with is coaching under Don Staley now.
Yeah,
Winston
Winston.
Gandy. Yeah, that's my guy. We were like really locked in. Like me, like I credit like all of my professional career to him because like we were just always just in the gym grinding. Like he just showed me how to be a pro at the college level, and like for me, I was just like fell in love with the process of getting better. Like he helped me fall in love with it. Didn't feel like work. It didn't feel like a workout. I just felt like always. I felt like a student, whether it was in film, whether it was in a workout, whether it was I was just always just picking his brain, trying to learn. And that that kind of like carried me over into being a professional. But yeah, he was really good. But also Brenda's player development is just exceptional. Like you don't have all of these professionals by accident. And she just, she produces professionals. And like I credit her, I credit Winston, and just the whole like her whole coaching staff and the whole organization, the whole athletic department is just really good.
Yeah, it's so funny you bring it up too, because like even going backwards, I think I love what you mentioned about like, I mean, it's because I agree, like, I mean, talking to anybody, I know that you were definitely an underrated player coming out, but it
Mhm.
speaks to how both important, but also like frustrating AAU is in some ways. Because
Oh
like
yeah.
I think this, I mean, I think it's very telling for a lot of players who've come through Maryland. Like
Mhm.
they were quote unquote under recruited, but also it's like, okay, well, if you weren't necessarily big on AAU, and you were doing your thing through high school, you don't get the same kind of traction and exposure in the
Yeah,
same way.
for sure,
And yeah,
absolutely.
because like even like I mean, obviously AT was like everybody knew AT coming out, but like I know she had kind of some of the same deal. She played for a smaller AAU
Yeah.
program, so like
Mhm.
that like she got screwed with becoming a McDonald's All American because of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yep.
stuff with that that's just like
Yeah.
makes it so
Absolutely.
difficult and kind of having
Definitely.
some of those things play out.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
coming into like, I mean, speaking on AT, like she was a senior when you were there as a freshman in
Yeah.
that group. Obviously, a very I think you guys had what like six pros on that group.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
freshman year. So what was that like coming in with those kind of expectations, and also somebody who is obviously Maryland had already been phenomenal for quite a few years. Like
Yeah,
Brenda's built this thing up.
for
Um,
sure.
so what was that like coming in and getting that feel?
It was great. It was great. It was like a good challenge. Now I'm saying all this in hindsight because in the moment I was super frustrated, like very
Yeah,
frustrated. But like it was just, it was just growing pains. As far as like just adapting in college, and I mean in high school, I'm like the best player, and so I'm going in with Alyssa Thomas, who is, I mean, obviously an All American, and day after day, I'm seeing why she's an All American. I'm like, okay. So for me, I'm like, I need to be a sponge because like she's clearly doing something right, and I have the opportunity to learn from her, not even just regardless of position, but just her approach for practices, for games, for film, for how she prepares her body, like all of these things. So I have a front row seat, so I might as well just take advantage of it. And so I kind of did that, even with Brenda. Like Brenda has won a national championship, so at the time I was probably a little hard headed freshman, but still, like I'm like, she's doing something right. She's here for a reason. So just after once I got older and a little bit more mature, just understanding and receiving the things that she says, even though I may not want to hear it. But she looking back, obviously she had my best interest at heart. And again, I wouldn't be here without her for sure.
yeah. Can you speak on that frustration aspect though? Kind of handling that as a freshman, like what was what kind of got to you? What were the things that you were kind of
Yeah,
gripping as somebody who was a young player, obviously still making an impact, but like what was that
yeah.
like for you, kind of handling that? And yeah, what do you what were the things that kind of like really got you the most?
Yeah, I think I mean typical stuff like playing time, you
Yeah,
know. And like at the end of the day, she wants to win. And if I'm not, if there's things that or concepts that I'm taking a little bit more time to understand, I gotta sit down because we're trying to win against UConns and the Notre Dames and different things like that. At the time we were in the ACC, so like Duke, Top Dog, North Carolina, all these schools. But like I was still so hungry. So in the beginning it was frustrating, but I had to like shift my mindset to say, okay, I have to try to be so good that I have to play, or like I'm not playing for a reason. So like going in and asking like, what do I need to do instead of just moping around and feeling sorry for myself. But again, I had like a AT's her senior class they were phenomenal. So Lauren Mincy, like the players in front of me, I was able to learn from. And they were great. Like they were great vets that were able to take me under their wing. And again at the beginning it was super hard, but because I wanted to play. Because in high school I just played through my mistakes,
yeah,
and it's a little bit different when you get to college.
for sure.
Um, but once that mindset changed of like, being able to see like what's keeping me off the court, and to, that's the areas I need to grow in, I was able to know, make those changes very quickly.
Yeah. No, that's really insightful. What do you feel is like maybe like kind of the breakthrough might be the wrong way to put it because I think you're obviously always still growing, but like was there maybe like a moment that kind of made you recognize, all right, this is really like how I find my way to play on this team or to be able to take those next steps and keep growing and developing?
Yeah, like for me, I'm very, very impatient. So like some people are
Oh,
like, I'm like, so some people are just would just be like, I'm just gonna like kind of like figure it out. Me, I'm very direct. So I will go and say, what do I need to do to get on the court? Like just straight. Like I'll be like, Coach, can I talk with you? Or I'll go to like an assistant. I'm like, what is she like? What does she want? Like, and so they're like, we're not rebounding well from the guard position. So we go out there and rebound. Or we need, we need some athleticism or some disruption on the defensive end. So go out there and do that. And so like little things, I'm like, okay, I can focus on that. I can focus on the rebounding. I can focus on being disruptive on the defensive end. Because I feel like coming in, a lot of people wants to score, score, score. If I score, I'm going to get on the court. But there's just so many aspects of basketball that you can make an impact. And so I'm like, okay, if I can focus on these two things, other things will come. Other things will come. But right now, I mean, AT's going to score 100 points, so they don't need scoring. But if we can do these other things to complement that, I'm like, okay, now I'm an asset to not only her but to our team. So that's kind of how I was able to, make an impact by like focusing on the small things. And Winston was really good at that. Like he's like, we can do so much more. We can do so much more than score. We can do so much more than making shots. Um, that's gonna come. We know you can do that. So like let's be this complete player.
yeah, I think that's so big because again, like I think when you're coming into something exactly like you said, like I mean, shoot, you won a state title, like you did a ton of awesome stuff when you're in high school. You're this level of player. So, okay, why can't I do that in college? Like, why can't I do that
Right.
right away? And I think being able to have people say, like, okay, well, this is how you can find that time. This is how you can keep
Yeah.
growing that. Like, I think there's, especially right now, um, like there's just such a mindset of like, okay, well, I need to be doing this. This is how I see success. And I
Yeah.
think being able to have somebody point you in that direction, like, the best way to develop is by honing in on something small and then you can grow outwards. You're not
Little.
going to start big.
Yeah.
And I think that's
For sure.
just like, again, like speaking on Brenda and her staff, they're so good at doing that. And I think
Yeah.
that's inherently, I mean, something that's huge in getting people to the pros and understanding how to be good at the next level. Like that's just a pro
Right.
level mindset. I wanted to ask too with Winston because I know from talking to Celeste Taylor too, like she working with Winston when she was at Duke was like, I mean, that was a big reason why she was there, why she loved being there. What kind of set him apart
Yeah.
as somebody helping you in player development that made it different for you?
He just like I don't know what he does, honestly. Like he's just well, one, I'll say he's very relatable and he's very honest.
Hmm.
Like he's very, very honest. Like not like blunt in like a mean way, but in a way that like I can receive it or someone else can receive it. Like, it might be different, but he's able to get to us the same way. Um, and so I feel like him being relatable for me, trustworthy and just honest. And then like at the same time, like he ended up, I can't remember, I think it was my junior year, he ended up working with the Wizards.
Yeah.
And so then he was, they're coming in at all hours of the night. I can't tell you one time that he was in Maryland that he told me no. Like he might have landed at 3, but we would get in at like 6. Me and him would work out at 6. He still would show up. Like he would not, if he was in town, no matter if he just landed, he might even just landed at 5:30. He's coming straight to the gym. He would never tell me no. He always showed up. And so for me, I'm like, dang, like y'all coming from LA, time difference. Y'all just landed. You got to travel back. You probably helped put the stuff back, bags back and stuff like that. Never complained. Always showed up, no matter what. For me, that like, I mean, I can't ask for more. You know what I'm saying? Like that goes
Yeah.
to that just that's very telling of like, the type of person he is and just his character, how much he cared about me too. And so for me, I'm just like, yeah, I can't say enough about the guy. He's so good. Like he's one of those. He was like the first person that we would work out, and he was like, "Okay, like now you're on defense." I'm like, "Why am I?"
Oh, that's funny.
like, okay, like I wanted to get shots up, not play defense against you. But that's how he was. Like, I mean, we worked on everything. Like we broke down film. I would be mad. Like, why are you waking me up at 5:30 to watch film? Like, uh, but everything came together. Like there was always a method to the madness, and I bought in. I bought in, even though I was annoyed. This film session can wait, but I bought in. So I mean, because I trusted him, and it worked. Everything, his vision came to fruition. Fruition.
I think that speaks to so much at a high level with just coaching in general. Like I think honesty and consistency are the most important things
Sure.
always because like you said, how are you going to build trust without that? And I think especially as a player, like when you're a player in an uncertain time, when you're not sure about like where you're at and getting to
Absolutely.
that next level, having somebody who's like, okay, yeah, we're not there yet, but I'm gonna keep showing up for you and
Mhm.
being able to show that. That's really big. So I love hearing that. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, as things kept going, like I mean, made 2 Final Fours there. The team was wildly successful your entire time, and you were a huge part of that. But I wanted to ask on like the just kind of the pro visibility aspects. Again, I think that's something that stands out a ton. Like right now, I feel like there's a pretty big disconnect between college and the W. And I feel like that's something I'd love to see change in the next couple of years. But like, I think there
Yeah.
are some programs that are starting to get really good at doing it. Of like, okay, we always have our pros come back and they're here, and we make sure it's shown like you can see the next level but also have a realistic understanding of how to get there because right now I think like there's a ton of talent but
Yeah.
being prepared for the next level is a different thing. um,
Uh-huh.
so what was it like kind of having that at Maryland and seeing that and how it maybe impacted you getting to the league?
Yeah. I think it also goes back to like when like how I said like Maryland was like a home away from home, like the family aspect. Cause like I remember, playing at Maryland and Christy Tolliver would come back, Marissa Coleman, Crystal Langhorne would come back. Now growing up, I don't remember watching them, but I grew to know them and build a relationship with them because they always came back. And it wasn't just like, again, writing the check, it was them coming back and practicing against us. So I'm like, okay, not only are they back, but now I'm able to see what it is playing like a pro as a sophomore or as a junior. So you can kind of measure or even ask questions. And they would even come into the locker room and they would talk to us and give us, tidbits about not even just the WNBA, but even like overseas pro life. So I think that was good. And I think it's a testament to the relationships that Brenda continues to have with her players. So like players don't just kind of like graduate and just go off. But they always, she keeps in touch. Like she, wishes me happy birthday every year, or she'll ask me where I'm at in the world, or she obviously comes to games too because I'm right down the street. And she'll bring the team, and she just really, makes that bridge. Again, I can't speak for any other school, but like she really does a really good job of, maintaining that relationship with her players, at least for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it seems like, I mean, I'm biased for sure, but I think that it definitely stands out. And being a player that has now gone back to and gotten to be in those inverse shoes, what has that been like for you? Kind of being
It's
able to
been,
see that and make that impact.
yeah, it's been good. It's a little bit different because now it's like with like different transfers and stuff. Like I have to like I feel like I have to. There's always like a lot of new faces, but I'm
Yeah,
always excited to see the new faces that they bring in because I mean I feel like Brendan and her staff are working overtime during these like with the transfer portal just making sure like the organization stays in an elite level, and I mean I trust them, And so I know that they're bringing in like not even just great players, but great people at the same time. So I'm always excited to go back and, watch the games overseas or listen to like some of the background stories of some of the girls because I know like aside from them being great basketball players, they're great people as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I mean, it's funny too because somebody who reminds me a lot of you. Obviously, you guys have different styles still and frames, but like I think Shy Sellers, like just a player who
That's what I
makes an impact
hear.
in everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny because she, so I didn't realize it until I got to know her a little bit, but she used to babysit my cousins
No
coming up,
way.
which like, small world, the way things happen. But
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I think like, yeah, I totally, vibe with that. But again, like with talking about getting to the league just as a whole, um, and having again like where you're at in your shoes, have you kind of felt that like I'm a vet now mindset and aspect at all, or is that something that really hits you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I think this year was the first time it like officially hit me because like someone said they were born in like 2001. I'm like, born?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Okay, that was like I was like, okay, let me not like show too much of a reaction because that was kind of crazy. But yeah, it happened like this year. I was like, oh wow, okay, yeah, I'm definitely old. Or somebody asked me like, what year is this for me? And I'm like, this is my eighth season. I'm like, oh, this is my eighth season.
yeah,
Like a lot of years. And
yeah.
I'm
I think the best
blessed.
way to look
I'm
at it
so
is like,
honored and blessed to
yeah,
play 8 years. Like some people don't even make it 1, 2 years. WNBA is super hard to not only get into, but to have a career in. And so, I'm just honored and blessed to say I'm just finished year 8.
yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you're playing really damn well too, so that adds to it. Obviously blessed, but you worked for it. But I want to add too. I mean, like you mentioned, I mean, shoot, you look back at what was like the number one song in 2017 when you got drafted? I don't know. I try and think of things like
I don't
that
even,
too. I'm like,
yeah, I don't even know. That's
yeah,
crazy to think about.
exactly. Like that always hits for me because I'm like, I was setting up like a draft board for 2026 the other day, and I was like, wait, like all these kids were born in like shoot, that's like
Right.
2004? Like, and I'm like, dude, what? That doesn't seem right.
Exactly.
Um, but I mean, especially like having a player there who was, a fellow sixth overall pick in Aaliyah Edwards. What was it like kind of getting to see her kind of have her journey and what you
Yeah.
were maybe able to impart to her as somebody who was, coming into your role as a vet?
Yeah, Leah was great. Um, she really was just great as far as just like her mindset. Like she just wants to be great. Like she just wants to be everything that she does. Like, I mean, the way she just comes into practice and just plays so hard. And like obviously she missed a couple games this season. Her body got banged up a little bit, but even just like her approach to get back on the court. You can just I felt bad. You can visibly see that she was just really frustrated. And like they had to literally tell her, like, you have to sit down. And it was just really hard for her to take because she's just such a hard worker and she just wants to be out there with the team. When she was, sitting on the bench when she was out, like you could hear her voice and, just instilling confidence and encouraging us, like things that I don't want to say you don't normally see out of a rookie, but like she could have been in like in her own like inward, because she was upset about not being out there, but she was just really like vocal and talking to us and telling us what she saw. But she was just, great to have as a teammate for sure.
Yeah. Hitting on that rookie aspect too, when you came into the league, what was the transition like for you? And obviously, I know you played really well your rookie year, but like, how do you kind of like looking back? How did you feel about your transition? Were there any things that you maybe didn't feel prepared for, or
Um,
things that if you could kind of see it backwards again, that you would maybe approach in a different way, or that you would hope that players are ready for?
yeah, I think for me, I think the hardest, I don't want to say the hardest, but I feel like the biggest adjustment was like I'm kind of like on my own. Like in
Yeah.
college, like they tell you what to eat, when to eat, like how to eat, what to wear, when to wear it. Like it was just very, very like structured. And like in the pro, it's just like, all right, game at 7, like you're on the court at 5. Like do whatever you want before that, but just make sure you're on the court at 5. We have a game at 7. So it's like, okay, like I have to figure out what I'm eating. I gotta watch what I eat to make sure, I'm putting the right fuel into my body game day. So like those types of things I had to learn. But Maryland did a good job. So I was kind of like just following what we did in college, but I had to find those things. It wasn't just like brought to me like in college. But I think my rookie year, I was coming in, I had vets like Christy Tolliver and Elena Deladon. Like I can't ask for better like veterans. Ivory Lotta, Tiana Hawkins went to Maryland. Like they were like the best vets ever because they just, took care of their bodies. They approached the game the right way. And I kind of would just follow after them. And I was just kind of like a sponge with them. So I kind of had the cheat. I called them the cheat code because they were just like, I just followed in their footsteps. Like whatever they were doing, like if they were stretching a certain way, I would just do it because I'm like, well, shoot, if it's good for them, and it's worked, like they're balling out and they're still playing here. Um, so that's kind of like I had cheat codes in them. So for me, I just like kind of like was just trying to be a sponge. And just kind of like asking them questions, following around, asking what they were eating, doing what they were doing, what time were they come to practice, how early were they coming to practice, were they staying after practice, doing things like that. That's kind of how I approached it my rookie year.
Yeah, anybody I talk to, I think that's the hardest part is the so much of figuring out how to be a pro has nothing to do with basketball.
No,
And I think
serious.
a lot of people just aren't ready for that. It's like 90% of the time you're just really not doing basketball. And I think that's what I don't know. I think I understand why fans feel like certain ways about things like but I also think part of what's difficult is you don't recognize how much stuff goes into like being ready for every
Oh
game
my
for
gosh.
people. And
Oh my
especially
god.
now too, like playing 40 games. You add that up, like there's just okay, it's really hard to lead a regular life and still
Yeah.
have all your things. And you mentioned stretching too. I think like that's something you take for granted
Yeah.
early on. Like at 27 now, I'm like, I mean, I didn't stretch this morning and I feel it in my lats already and I regret it. And it's like, little things like that. And you have to, I mean, getting up to go play something extremely intense. It's very
Yeah.
different than just getting up to work at your desk for a day. But like, how did you kind of get accustomed to that and finding
Um,
things out about yourself outside of basketball? Because obviously, I mean, your style is, of
oh,
course, in the tops of the league. But like, I think even just from that aspect of like figuring out what do I like outside of basketball? Like,
yeah.
how do I kind of fill my time outside of just being on the court, but also still being in a place to be at your best with that?
Yeah, I think for me, I learned a lot when I went overseas. Um, and for me, I don't really watch TV.
Hmm.
So I know, like, some people will go over there and, like, binge watch Netflix or whatever. Now I do like to read, so I will read. But, like, for me, like, once I went overseas, I'm like, I kind of just want to be outside. So I would like go on walks or I would talk to like my native teammates that were there and like ask for recommendations. And so then we'll have breaks. Normally like the break that I'm in now, normally I don't come back home. I normally like
Hmm.
to go to another country in Europe, whether it's London, Paris, Dubai, whatever. So I just like to explore and just like embrace where I'm at. And so for me, I kind of like took that and brought it back here, even though this is home, but like even in DC has so much to do. Like there's so much to do. So I'm like always just like exploring. Like I like to thrift. I like to read. I like to go to the museums. Um, I'm always on a scooter, like always on a scooter. So I'm always outside.
Hey, that's the only way to travel in DC because
I love the scooter.
yeah.
Like so I love the scooter. So yeah, I'm just always outside exploring. And there's just so much diversity. Like again, there's so many different like live music, like all of those things. Like I'm always trying to do different things like that. But it started overseas, just like if I'm in Turkey, like exploring Istanbul or going to Greece, just different things like that. And like I just brought that mindset back over here.
No, that's really great because I think again, like that's something I'm not great at. Like I need to be better at like getting out and like doing stuff and doing things outside of basketball. Because like, exactly like you said, I think if you can't stay grounded in some of those things outside of it,
Yeah,
like you're kind of just gonna go crazy thinking
for
about it all the
sure.
time, right?
For sure.
Um, and especially too, like handling the first couple years of becoming a pro and
Mm.
wanting to get to a certain level. Um, when did you kind of feel like you most hit your stride as a player? Because obviously, I know like you started off with the Mystics, had a couple of handling getting waived, having a 7-day contracts. How did you kind of handle
Yep.
that, and when did you
Yeah.
feel like you most hit your stride and were able to kind of find that?
Honestly, I feel like I feel like I'm still kind of still hitting it.
Yeah.
And like that was, I think that was like kind of like a turning point for me as far as like the mindset was, as far as like, being waived. It's not saying I took it for granted, but I'm like, oh, it just got taken away from me so quickly. Like one day I was in training camp and literally the next day I'm watching like because the way I was in Atlanta and our first game was Friday. like the season opener was Friday, and I got cut after practice on Thursday. So like all week I'm preparing for our first game. And so then like in the blink of an eye, I'm watching the first game because I'm not obviously on the team anymore. And so like I think it was like 6, probably like 8 weeks had passed. And I'm watching the games and I'm just like almost like every probably about 5, 6 days a week, I was waking up at like 5 AM because again, it was like during COVID. So I was waking up at like 5 to walk to the YMCA to use their gym to try to get in there before anybody else got in there. Because if someone were to call, I would wanted to be ready, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to have COVID, so I didn't want to be exposed to anything. And that was hard, but that's when I knew like I really loved it because like even days I would take off or wanted to take off, my body was still waking me up obviously at that time. So I'm like, instead of just like rolling back over, I'm like, I want to be ready. Like I want to do this thing. And so that was like the mindset change, the mindset shift for me. I was like, okay, I do love it, even though I don't have a job right now. And I'm really sad I don't, but I'm still doing this, even though I'm waiting for a call that I may not get. I may not get a call. But if that call does come, I'm gonna make sure I'm ready.
Yeah.
That was kind of like the mindset shift for me.
Yeah, that resonates a lot with me because I'm like kind of doing something similar right now. And so you feel that in terms of like, okay, well, you're working full time for something and doing it nonstop. And it's like,
Yeah.
it
You
gives
just
you a different appreciation for it. Cause it's
yeah.
like, dude, if what do I do if I stop? Like,
Right.
what does that look like? And but I also think again, it speaks to like your passion for it and
Mhm,
the work
mhm.
ethic because it's so easy to also just like, okay, well, what if you do stop? What does that mean?
Exactly.
And I think that also is again just like that's such a difficult thing to do because you don't know when that opportunity is coming. You don't know
Might
what that's
not.
going to look like. And I think again, like the hardest part is, and part of we don't even have to talk about expansion, but part of what's great about that is like, cool. I think so much of the decisions in basketball, like when I was coming up, I used to think everything's talent. Everything's talent. So much
Yeah.
of it is nothing to do with talent. Everything to do with timing.
For
And
sure.
that's the even harder part because it's
For
like you
sure. You
can't
couldn't
control that
control
at all, you know? It's
that.
just like, well, great.
Yeah.
What do you do about
Exactly.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Um, and I wanted to ask too, because I know like you are somebody from talking to your agent, like I know you're somebody who really wants to get into being in a front office someday,
Mhm.
and working even deeper in basketball, which obviously that's a ways off for you because you were just now hitting your best as a player, but like um having the perspectives you've got as a player too, how has that kind of shaped, what the way you think about things from more of that perspective too of what that could look like for you in the future?
Yeah. Like I feel like a lot of players like go from player to coach. Um, and I, for whatever reason, have zero desire to coach.
Yeah.
No, you might see me coach one day and you're gonna remember this, but like right now I have no desire to coach. Um, I just think that the general manager and president's roles are just so important because like if I told someone to make me an entree or like some steak and rice, for example, and I gave you a light bulb, crayons, and a blender, it's like,
What a
and that's
combo.
what coaches get. Like it's like, all right, win me a championship, but you give me, but the GM and the president aren't like they're in charge of putting the pieces together. Now the coach got to make it happen. But if you don't give me pieces to happen, like I don't. And coaches, I feel like coaches get the short end of the stick all the time because if it doesn't work, it's like you're out. But you didn't even give me like a team that can. And I'm not talking about individual players, but they have to be able to work together. And I'm dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, like as coaches they are. Like I'm just like I just feel like the front office role is just so important, and it's like I don't want to say overlooked, but it's just like their part in it is just so. Um, and so for me, like I love all of it. Like I would play games with like our GM at the time, Mike Tebow, about like I would play like, oh, who's better, or like if you were doing this, like, oh, why do you think so and so got traded? Like, how much do you think this player is worth? Like I would ask these questions all the time, like even before practice, this summer. And so like he would come back, because he would like I would like I'm a GM, right? So he would ask me all like the different questions and stuff, just like pick his brain a little bit. But I just think that their roles are so important. Like coaches, like they just like, all right, make something happen out of like nothing. Sometimes.
Yeah. No, I think there's so much good there, and I love the analogy too because it's just the truth. Like I think, um, again, like when I was coming up, when I first started in basketball, I was like, yeah, all you need is to be smart. Like you just have to like look at the things right and like know how to do basketball. And I'm like,
Mm,
honestly, the best organizations are the ones that have the best communication.
for
Like that's
sure.
so
For
essential.
sure.
Like it sounds so simple, but like it's just
Sure.
true. Like if
Definitely.
you have really smart coaches who
Hmm.
want to play a certain way, but they don't have the players to play that way, they're still going to try and play their style.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Exactly.
If you give them the wrong players that they're asking for, then it's not going to work. Like you can have so much
Exactly.
talent and all these ideas and be the smartest people in the room, but it doesn't matter if you can't actually bring it all together. And I think that just yeah. But figuring that out, it's also like, I mean, it's great, but also like bad at the same time because then you're like, how do some of these things go so wrong? But it's
Serious. Oh,
it's
serious. Some of the coaches
fascinating.
do like they fumble the bag too.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. But I think I mean that makes me want to ask too, just in general with like the 2019 Mystics team, like
mhm.
with how that team came together. Obviously one hell of a run, still one of the best teams of all time. What are maybe some of the biggest takeaways you have from being part of that group?
Yeah.
And hitting the stride that you guys did that season.
Yeah, I think the main one was the veterans. Um and and at the time it was we had Elena, we had Toya Sanders, Tosh Cloud, Christy Tolliver, um, and Emma Meesman was coming off the bench. Like we just had a lot of good people that bought into what Mike, Tebow, and Eric wanted us, like, like the vision. We bought into the vision. But we kind of like all like he didn't really have to micromanage. Like he didn't have to tell anybody to take care of their bodies. He didn't have to tell anybody to come into the gym. He didn't have to because like if there's something that went wrong on the court, he didn't. I mean, he would, but he didn't have to correct it because we could self-correct because we were able to communicate within our team. And I think also it was a testament to like how like we got along off the court. Like we genuinely liked being around each other. We didn't have to force people to do team dinners because we genuinely wanted to on the road. We would go out to eat with one another. So I think that was like the team camaraderie was just really good because we genuinely liked each other. So then that was very it translated onto the court because we wanted to play hard for each other. Like we could trust each other. I knew if I got beat here, Toya Sanders was gonna be there every single time. But also, I feel like what was very very crucial, I think for us that year was um, the the team as a whole. And as when I say that, I'm talking about even like the bench because like we had some injuries throughout like the duration of that season. But because our bench was really good, like it was like next woman up, and it was like no drop off. And like you'll see like now like some teams are like very very top heavy as far as like their starting five, but they don't like their bench doesn't really play that much. And we have a long season. These are a lot of minutes. And so sometimes when teams start breaking down, there's kind of like a little bit of a drop off because some of these bench players don't really play or they don't feel as confident. The chemistry's not there. But I think because our team was just very, like kind of like next woman up, and we would challenge each other each day in practice. That was very I think that was very important to our success that year too.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point because I mean, you need so much going in that way to have it hit right. Like you need to have like you talk about with the front office piece, like you have to have players that fit the system, but you
Yeah.
also have to have the depth. You have to draft well. You have to be able to bring over the right players in free agency. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
obviously Emma, like I mean, you speaking on Emma, like Emma was good in that regular season, and then she was like the best player in the playoffs. It was insane.
Really
I'll
good.
never forget watching that because that was the first season I really started following, and like that was just an out
Okay.
of body experience watching that in the playoffs. But like, exactly, I mean, like I just like you look back at that bench, and obviously I think it's different because there's more youth with it now compared to where you guys are at now. But like still, like
Yeah.
you, AP, Tiana Hawkins, Maisha, Shea
Uh-huh.
Petty, like
Yeah.
those are all players
Yeah.
who can make an
Uh-huh.
impact, and like it's not
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
placeholder names or something, which with respect, but like I think like that's so exactly what you said. I
Yeah.
think having that depth in a season, especially now, like I think it's gonna matter that much more in a 40 game season. That
For
44
sure.
next year. Like you have to have
Yeah.
that depth.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that comes with front office being able to make sure, like, salary caps and things fit, but also, going out and get, like, good people and people like the games that, complement each other too.
Yeah, 100%. Um, and I think it's funny too, because the other thing that I take away from it, and I'm interested to see what you think about it, but like, I think it just speaks again to the timing. Like, timing
Yeah,
is so important and it's everything. And like,
peak at the right time.
I think so much of part of like, again, when I was younger, I used to think it's always like, oh, well, you have to have these big sweeping takeaways from the playoffs.
Uh,
Like, this is how you do things. And I'm like, I watched the playoffs this year and I'm like, that Minnesota team was incredible. And I think
if
that like
I'm not
losing wait, what?
I said, if I'm not mistaken, they might have been like preseason picked like ninth. I don't even know if
Yeah.
people ESPN
Which
had
was
a
crazy to me. I have
no,
no idea why
seriously.
that was the pick, but it's exactly like I think like I mean, if there's 30 seconds of difference, maybe they're champions. And I look at that year too, and
Seriously.
I think it's
Oh,
interesting because
yeah. Think about it like that.
um I don't like narrative talk and stuff,
Yeah.
but like I look at Connecticut and I'm like, I think about Connecticut a lot because that season I've just rewatched the 2019 finals
Uh-huh.
recently because I love watching that. But like it's easy to forget. I mean, the Sun
Yeah.
were up 2 with
Uh-huh.
7 minutes left,
Uh-huh.
and I just will never forget finishing that because you finish the game. I think it's Rebecca Lobo says, obviously it stinks for the Sun that they lose this, but they'll be back and they're going to win a championship. And I'm like, obviously, like, and I don't mean this as a slight to them, but like, it's just difficult. Like, they have
Uh-huh.
injuries that happen each year.
Yep.
These things happen, and like, but I think it speaks to how difficult it is to
It's
build
hard.
and find a time like it was in 2019 because
Sure.
that's just really hard to put together,
Yeah.
and find all of that.
Yeah. So when Vegas goes back to back, it's like you put in perspective how like great that is because it's back to back. It's hard to win one, let alone two in a row.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have to have that mindset all the time. You have to have that level of locked in and play all the time. Like it's not just like having the talent. It's like, okay, well, can we play with this exact style that we need to play to
Yeah.
win every single time we're on the court? Like
Yeah.
that's really hard stuff.
Right.
Um, but Tori, this was phenomenal. I really enjoyed getting to know you and see how you see
Likewise.
the game, and I'm excited to kind of see how things keep popping for you.
Definitely.
Yeah, and like I mean, we talked about it earlier, but I just think where your game's at, it fits so much with modern basketball and how you
Thank
play.
you. I
Like,
appreciate it.
yeah, of course. I mean, one of the best two-way players in the league.
Thank you.
Is there anything you want to shout out or mention before we get out of here?
Um, well, I'm a free agent right now, so I can't really say too much on any team. But right now it's a really good place I feel to be a part of women's basketball and a fan. So I'm super excited for like the trajectory of what is done in this past year and where it's going to be.
Absolutely. Well, to everyone watching and listening, be sure to keep up with everything Tori's doing. Going to be a lot of opportunities to watch her coming up in Euro Cup soon and just in general. But Tori, thank you again to everyone listening. Thanks for tuning in.